Good morning and welcome to the fourth meeting of the Orange County Citizen Safety Task Force. I want to thank everyone for braving the weather today. I didn't know when I woke up this morning it was going to be pouring rain, and then for the traffic that you all encountered, and I've heard there's some wrecks on the turnpike. So again, thank you all for making that effort and your diligence to be here. I appreciate it so much. It is my pleasure to be here on behalf of Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings to be the staff lead for the Citizen Safety Task Force, and I've had such an extreme pleasure to work with each of you all. I couldn't be more thankful to have such a wonderful group of caring and devoted residents for this issue of addressing gun violence and violent crime in our community. So it is now my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Jerry L. Demings, Orange County Mayor.
All right. Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Carol. Carol Burkett does a wonderful job in helping to facilitate and coordinate these meetings. I have to give some acknowledgments to our team from Orange TV. We're very fortunate as a county to be one of few counties in Florida that has its own television station that allows us to share publicly the work that we're doing here within Orange County. And so to the team of individuals who are facilitating this from Orange TV, thank you for the work that you're doing. As we move forward with our Orange County Citizen Safety Task Force, I want to also say thank you to all of you who have been doing the work, who have been volunteering your time for this effort. The work is meaningful to our citizens here. I will look forward to the recommendations that you will ultimately make to the Board of County Commission. It will be timely because we're moving into that phase where we will be finalizing our budget for the upcoming fiscal year in 2024. The current fiscal year ends September the 30th, and the new fiscal year begins October 1st. But in the process, this summer we will be having our budget workshops. We will then have our public hearings towards the first part of September. Pursuant to that, there will be some discussion about how we fund various programs that we have within the county, and the feedback that you will give that will come out of the Citizen Safety Task Force will be part of the dialogue that we will have. In terms of the recommendations, you will have short-term, long-term recommendations, and from our prior recommendations, we reported out, as you know, on whether or not we had achieved some of the goals that were established, and some are works in progress. Some will be modified based upon your recommendations or amended. In some regard, there may be some new ones. There's one area of particular note that I saw and read, and it is regarding our regulatory authority as a county over gun control, gun rights, violent crime, and gun prevention. There are some preemptions under state law that preempts local governments from enacting any type of legislation, etc., that is contrary to the state law in regards to gun control and those related issues. In fact, the legislation includes penalties for local elected officials who may violate the state's law. So that is an area that, in looking at preliminary recommendations, I am going to ask the county attorney's office to make certain that any recommendations that come forward do not run afoul of the current state law here within Florida because of that preemption that exists. Many of you already know that in terms of advocacy, if it's outright advocacy for any type of political position on legislation, there are some prohibitions there as well. But those of us who serve in elected office, we certainly can advocate but our staff, that's a different story. So we have to make certain that whatever we do, it is clean and kept separate in terms of the advocacy. I do recognize my colleague here, Commissioner Michael Scott, has joined us. He has attended several of these meetings. I'm not sure if we have any other elected officials here or not. But as we move forward this morning, I look forward to your discussions. I will be here for a portion of the meeting today, and then I have another obligation at the airport, another function that I'll be leaving for perhaps before you will conclude your meeting today. And to our co-chairs, let me just say once again, thank you for the work that you're doing, your leadership. I know that we're going to leave the work to be done in good hands with Pastor Doggett and Dr. Coffin. They will carry on in my absence. And I'm going to turn it over to them at this time so that we can formally begin our meeting.
This morning, instead of a traditional invocation, I'm going to invite you to share in a reflection with me. I came across a poem that was written just after the war broke out in the Ukraine. And I think that while it's talking about war at a grander scale, what we're talking about in the subcommittees and in the larger task force is a form of war, and I think much of this is applicable. And so I'd like to share this poem, which is called "In the Face of War, I'm So Small, Yet Love is Big." And it's slightly adapted for our purposes here. It's written by a man named John Rodell. I can't make the world be peaceful. I can't stall tanks from roaring down roads. I can't prevent children from having to hide in bunkers. I can't convince the news media to stop turning war into a video game. I can't silence the sound of bombs tearing neighborhoods apart. I can't turn a guided missile into a bouquet of flowers. I can't make a warmonger have an ounce of empathy. I can't convince ambassadors to quit playing truth or dare. I can't deflect the sniper's bullet from turning a wife into a widow. I can't stave off a country being reduced to ash and rubble. I can't do any of that. The only thing I can do is love the next person I encounter without any conditions or strings. To love my neighbor so fearlessly that it starts a ripple that stretches from one horizon to the next. I can't force peace on the world, but I can become a force of peace in the world. Because sometimes all it takes is a single lit candle in the darkness to start a movement. Let us be candles of comfort in this world. Let us burn with peace. I thought that was appropriate for our group today. Thank you.
I invite you now to stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we would like to have all the members who are present, as well as the county liaisons, to introduce themselves, and we'll start over here at my right.
Good morning. Arnie Amoros, Orange County Representative, District 4.
Good morning. I'm Jim Lee. I'll be sitting in for Barb Bergen on Central Florida Crime Line.
Good morning. I'm Charles Brown, the Senior Vice President of Bridges International.
Good morning. Laddie Calloway on behalf of Greater Footsteps Foundation.
Good morning. Lisa Coffey, Orange County Public Schools.
Good morning. Linda Coffin, Moms Demand Action.
Good morning. Lisa Early, City of Orlando. Good morning. Dr. Jonathan Cox, University of Central Florida.
Good morning. Sandra Fatmi Hall, representing Pine Hills Community Council.
Morning, everyone. Adam Hartnett with Poverty Solutions Group in Circle, Central Florida.
Good morning. Barbara Lanning from the League of Women Voters of Orange County.
Good morning, Sheriff John Mina, Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, Miles Moran Jr. Let your voice be heard.
Good morning. Nancy Ash, University Professor.
Good morning, Captain Tanisha Bronskill, Orlando Police Department for Chief Smith.
Good morning. Bill Vos, retired Chief Assistant State Attorney, Ninth Circuit.
Good morning, Mark Wickstrom, Chief Assistant State Attorney for the Ninth Circuit, here on behalf of State Attorney Monique Worrell.
Good morning, Juanita Beeson, Liaison to the Prosecution Subcommittee.
Good morning, Anthony Watts, Deputy Chief, Liaison to the Enforcement Subcommittee.
Good morning, Angela Chastain, Staff Liaison to the Prevention Subcommittee.
Good morning, Tracy Salem, Deputy Director, Community and Family Services, Intervention Subcommittee Liaison.
Hello, everyone. I'm Van Thomas, Director, Community and Family Services, Orange County.
Good morning, Carol Burkett, Deputy Chief of Staff to Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings and Staff Lead to the Citizen Safety Task Force.
And I would ask, do we have any who are watching on WebEx?
Thank you, Pastor Coffin. We do have Subhash Katil that is on WebEx joining us.
Thank you very much. And thank all of you for being here today.
Everyone has received a draft copy of our May 26th task force meeting, and we're ready now to entertain a motion that these minutes be accepted. Do we have a motion?
Could I make a amendment to it? I've just checked my notes. I was here. I think what happened is I didn't sign my name when I came in the door. So Bill Vos was here.
Very good.
Didn't want anybody to let me out here.
Yes. Do we have a motion that these minutes be accepted with that amendment?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. It's carried.
At this time, we have some community comments. And so I'd first of all like to ask Commissioner Mike Scott to come to the microphone, and then Jesse Board. And so the amount of time allotted for the comment is 3 minutes. And if you were wanting to make a comment but haven't yet filled out the form to do so, please see Ms. Carol Burkett over here and make sure that you get on the list.
Good morning, everyone. I want to just take a moment and just say thank you for all the work you guys have done in this task force and obviously in the community. Many of you are not paid to be here, yet you're here every day, day in and day out in the task force committees, running emails, making phone calls to make this happen. So thank you for that. When I look at Orange County government, I look at us as a backbone agency. And when I think about what backbone agencies do, they support smaller agencies. They support programs that may not have someone that believes in them. They support winners when no one knows or believes that an organization or an individual may be a winner. That is similar to my story. Living here my entire life, I think about the things that I experienced as a kid. Junior Magic at the Pine Hills Boys and Girls Club, going to the Southwest Boys and Girls Club. Now those names have changed. The YMCA on Hastings, and I think the Pine Hills Community Center used to be a YMCA, if I remember correctly. And all those things, I think, kind of shaped my trajectory. But my pathway into this work, and when I say this work, I'm talking about like mentoring and serving families, started with the Public Defender's Office as a volunteer. It's how I met many of the people sitting on the left side of the room, Carol Burkett, Dr. Thomas, Miss Angela, Chief Watts, Miss Beeson, and also Miss Rump. And so as I progressed, I started volunteering with the school district, Great Oaks Village, because it was a passion of mine and it was a calling on my life that I didn't know. I say all that to say this. I would love to see some iteration of this task force hopefully become an advisory board, hint, hint, Mayor. But also to grow the work that we know is being done by so many other organizations, not just the nonprofits, but our constitutional partners. As I said, I started with the public defender as a volunteer to get into mentoring, and that's 19 years later I'm here. But you look at, the state attorney trying different engagement methods that you haven't seen before. You look at the sheriff's office and their grants program over the 30 years. Now they're at 24 organizations. And so for me, I think it's not only incumbent upon us as a governmental entity to invest in nonprofits, but also to foster the creation of other like programs in the organizations that don't have them and invest in the ones that do. And so for me, I want to see some type of engagement with the property appraiser, the tax collector, because it's not a law enforcement problem, it's not a faith-based problem, it's a community problem. It's going to require all of us in different ways. And while I think I'm a pretty decent mentor, I know I'm not the solution for every kid. And we have to know that investing in things that may not look like they're viable, but giving them the opportunity to believe in them. And so I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you guys for the work. I appreciate you, and thank you, chairs, members.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Scott. And now Jesse Boyd.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse Boyd. I am director and co-founder of Boyd Faith, Hope, and Love Ministries. We are a prison ministry, 503c nonprofit that serve in the state prisons in Florida. We are a faith-based entity. We believe a faith-based approach to reentry is the best. I am a returning citizen myself. I believe that faith-based foundation is what helps us ex-offenders to come home and stay grounded. So I'm saying this to speak from that place, from the ex-offender place in this situation. I believe that to break the crimes, to break the cycle of crimes and violence in this city, we must address poverty first and our underserved communities, and acknowledge that inadequate reentry services directly impact crimes and violence. Naturally, about 98% of people sentenced into prisons or jails will return to the same community because that's the only place and hope of surviving. About 2/3 of these individuals are rearrested within 3 years, some committing crimes of violence or the same crimes that got them into prison in the first place. I feel we have to see if these crimes of violence are connected directly with ex-offenders and see how we could make a way to help ex-offenders to come out of these invisible handcuffs that they come into when they come home. The United States accounts for 5% of the world's population, but house 25% of the world's prison population. It costs taxpayers $18,000 per year to house one adult in the Florida Department of Corrections, $48,000 per year in a local jail, and $81,000 per year to place one youth in the Department of Juvenile Justice facility. People with criminal histories face various obstacles to reintegrating into society, such as finding employment, secure and good housing, getting substance abuse treatment, and mental health treatment. We need to look into the services that we do have, and then find a necessary way to bridge them to connect these resources to our returning citizens. Our local county government I'm suggesting this, should coordinate a reentry task force or a subcommittee to connect with this committee to focus strictly on reentry. And thank you for allowing me to have my time to speak. I see I'm beeping, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to just say a word of thanks to all of the task force members for the time commitment that you've made. We've had 4 task force meetings, 16 subcommittee meetings, 2 public forums, and you have dedicated your time and your sweat equity to this most important subject. And we want to say thank you. Today we're going to be hearing from our subcommittees, and this is, in fact, the meat of the work, where we're going to hear the recommendations that have been made by our subcommittees. Each one of the persons who will be presenting for our subcommittees, we're asking you to take approximately 10 to 12 minutes with your report. Of course, a vote will be taken today later after we've heard all of the reports and have had an opportunity to have discussion on the recommendations that are being made. First, we're going to hear today from Dr. Jonathan Cox. He represents the prosecution subcommittee. After Dr. Cox, we will hear from Lisa Early, the chair of the prevention subcommittee. And then we will go to Tracy Salem, who will be representing the intervention subcommittee. Then finally, the committee that was chaired by Judge Dawson, he's not here on today, he can't attend, but Nancy Ash will be presenting for the enforcement subcommittee. I want to thank all of our chairs and those who are representing the subcommittees for being willing today to step forward to the microphone and make your presentations. Again, 10 to 12 minutes is the ballpark we're asking for, and then there will be plenty of opportunity later to discuss these recommendations. Dr. Cox, you are recognized.
Before we go to Dr. Cox, I just wanted to make a recognition as well. Commissioner Gomez Cordero just arrived, and we're in her district here, so she is very, very supportive of this role as well. Sorry.
No problem. Of course, Mayor. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the response. I appreciate it. So again, my name is Dr. Jonathan Cox. I'm an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Central Florida, as well as the vice president for the Center for Policy Analysis and Research at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. I have the pleasure of serving as the chair for the prosecution subcommittee. Not working. Technical difficulties, 1 second. Oh. Thank you. All right. Ooh, okay, it seems to be working. There we go. All right. So our committee, the prosecution subcommittee, was charged with providing recommendations towards enhancing the prosecution of gun violence and violent crimes, as well as finding ways to reduce violent crimes through alternative prosecutorial avenues. And as a committee, we met 3 times outside of the larger task force community meetings and heard presentations by guest speakers, community members, task force members, and county staff regarding the Geographic Stewards Program, the Adult Civil Citations Program, the Blueprint for Ending Gun Violence, and Orange County Corrections Reentry Programs. And through our ongoing meetings, the prosecution subcommittee believes that we have several important recommendations to present towards our committee goals. All right, so the first 2 recommendations that we have are related to recommendations that came out of the committee. Thank you. That came out of the committee during the last cycle of this task force. And so the first is the Geographic Stewards Program. Now, this recommendation involves the implementation of a community prosecution model where prosecutors partner with local community members and law enforcement to help interrupt the cycle of violence. And we really wanted to note here that while this is an important recommendation, it's a very useful tool, a general lack of funding and limited staffing somewhat inhibited the progression of this particular recommendation. Our second recommendation that came out of this committee during the last cycle of this task force is implementing a civil citation diversion program. We felt that this recommendation overall had really great benefits, and thus we proposed several enhancements to the program in order to help improve both its effectiveness and its usage with different organizations. And so what we propose as short-term actions regarding this recommendation is, one, we recommend that law enforcement agencies make the issuance of civil citations mandatory for eligible offenses and establish processes requiring officers to obtain approval for not using a civil citation in a given instance. Second, we recommend that law enforcement agencies publish statistics showing the number of citations that are issued out of their various units. And we also recommend that the state attorney's office or law enforcement agencies publish statistics showing the number of instances in which citations could have been issued. We also recommend, with regards to this, that the state attorney's office develop public service announcements for the general public to help inform them of this program that they can use, so that they may be able to request this option if they find themselves in the circumstance where they might need to use it, as well as to inform the public that this program is not intended to represent a soft approach on crime. Rather, it really helps to allow law enforcement to focus on more significant crimes. And finally, with regards to this, we recommend that law enforcement introduce the program to new recruits during their onboarding training, right? This will altogether, these additional recommendations that we have for the civil citations program will enhance the ways in which this program is used, increase its usage across the board in different departments, and again, just make it more available to the public in general. Now, our third recommendation, which was a new one out of our committee, was that we wanted to we recommend the identification of a legislative advocate who will make recommendations for legislation that will help create protections for witnesses and neighboring persons to facilitate their willingness to share information, right? And so a part of this, or a part of successful prosecution of violent crimes, it really involves input and support from local community members, as well as testimony from witnesses. And so we really wanted to emphasize the need to help protect these individuals so that we can help build that relationship between law enforcement and community members in order to solve these crimes. A specific recommendation with regards to this is also to increase restrictive parameters around the sharing of information regarding witnesses, again, towards the goal of protecting witnesses so that they feel more forthcoming with information and giving that on to help with cases against violent offenders. Our fourth recommendation is also new, is that the state attorney's office just issues a statement of affirmation and commitment to prosecuting gun violence cases to the fullest extent. We believe that this will help send a really positive message to the community. Again, that many of our recommendations are not to represent a softer approach on crime, but to help to eliminate, some of the prosecution for some things, right, that are lower level that may lead to higher level offenses. But again, also to really signify that we are about prosecuting gun violence and other violent crimes to the fullest extent of the law. A fifth recommendation that we have is to increase street cameras universally throughout Orange County. Oftentimes people would like to see the increase of street cameras and other ways of helping to identify criminals and violent offenders just in targeted areas, but we wanted to expand beyond that, right? We want to make sure that we're not simply targeting areas which could lead to, again, more negative interactions with various communities, but also expand that usage across Orange County, and then let people know that this is something that's going to be happening everywhere, right? And that has a larger impact on crime and law enforcement's ability to arrest people, to find out what's happening, and then for a prosecution to happen. Now, our final recommendation that came out of our committee is really to help with the crime survey that's done every year, but towards the suggestion that we got before to help to capture some information with regards to prosecution specifically. And so we suggested a few questions that could be added to the community crime survey. Again, just want to emphasize that these are merely suggestions, that we think that somebody could kind of take these and craft them in the best ways to get the best information. But questions like, if you have perpetrated a crime of gun violence, what would have prevented you from committing that crime? Have you had communication with prosecuting authorities in the past year? If so, were you a victim or were you a witness? And then finally, do you know how the prosecution system works? or again, some similar type of question to assess community familiarity with prosecution practices and processes. Again, these are the complete recommendations of our subcommittee. We really believe that these will help continue to do a lot of great work in the community with regards to prosecution. We know that this is it's the unfortunate aspect of what needs to happen with regards to violent crime, but also one of those things that is really significant and necessary. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Cox. We're ready now to hear from Tracy Salem, representing the Enforcement Subcommittee.
Dr. Doggett, we're on prevention next.
Oh, we're on prevention next?
Sorry.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Lisa Early. My fault.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I first want to thank Ms. Angela Chestang for being our liaison, being there all the time, always being prepared, and really giving the kind of support that we needed as a committee. Thank you so much. And please thank Ms. Daisy Townsend as well, who was there taking all the minutes and handling all the logistics. So appreciate that. And also a thank you to Moms Demand Action. I just have to say this, even in the when the committee met back in the day several years ago, they always had people there. They're volunteers. They came out. This is their passion, what they care about. And I just want to thank the organization for all they do. Okay. So let me use the clicker here. Prevention. Okay, these are members of our committee. Most of them are here. I want to thank the members of our committee who came, who gave their input, who really have passion for this work. Thank you for all that you did. So our committee decided to focus mainly on youth between the ages of 13 and 25 residing in the zip codes that where the incidence of violent crime is the highest. We held 5 meetings, and our members participated in the community meetings as well. We had several presentations from guest speakers, community stakeholders, and county staff. A presentation from Prevent Gun Violence Florida, one from the Orange County Public Information Officer from the Department of Community and Family Services. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. One from the Division Manager for Children, Youth, and Families for the City of Orlando. Also a presentation from Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and Live Free Campaign, which is a national organization. So when the task force first met 2 years ago, our committee had come up with 7 overall recommendations. So when we first began at our first meeting, Ms. Chestang graciously went over all of those recommendations and what the county had done during that 2-year period. And it was really quite remarkable. It was a very detailed analysis of all the work that had been done. And we were really pretty, I think, impressed by the work that the county has put in to begin to implement these recommendations. So we decided to narrow down our focus, since the time was limited, to narrow down our focus to those recommendations that we wanted to amend or change. And there were 3 recommendations that we focused on. One of them was our recommendation number 2, which is entitled Expand/Enhance Access to Effective Youth and Parenting Mental and Behavioral Health Programs. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The second recommendation that we looked at and decided to amend was reducing access to illegal firearms, and obviously that conversation was founded on the fact that the state has issued new statutes since the time of the original task force meetings. And then the last recommendation that we looked at was to communicate key issues and programs to the community. And a lot of this had to do with Ms. Chestang's presentation and all of the things that the county has been doing, and a sense that, wow, we want the broader community to know more about all this stuff. So with regard to recommendation number 2, We looked at 3 particular components of that recommendation. It was a very broad recommendation in the original task force meeting. The first one we looked at was a recommendation to fund programs operated by credible messengers in the target neighborhoods. Credible messengers are defined herein as organizations, including small-scale and individuals who have long-standing, trusted relationships with at-promise youth in the target zip codes and a legacy of effectively encouraging and supporting youth on the path to successful adulthood. So Ms. Chastain talked about the investments that have been made in the Credible Messenger program since this recommendation was originally made 2 years ago. And our recommendation as a task force was that the county should review the impact of the program and determine if additional funding is needed to achieve program goals. And I think the sense was that it's doing really good prevention work on the ground in the neighborhoods that we want to focus on, and we're not sure that they're given enough money and investment to really get the job done. And so if it's being effective, the county should consider allocating even more funding to the program. The second part of that recommendation was to look at an earlier recommendation. What you see up on the screen, the parts that are underlined are added language that we have amended our previous recommendations to add the language that is underlined here. So it says allocate substantial funding based upon budget recommendations of experts in the field to implement research-based models in the target zip codes proven to prevent violent crime, including the following list of practices. And so this is talks about the CVI model. CVI stands for Community Violence Intervention, which is different from the Credible Messenger program. So Credible Messengers is really a primary prevention program in neighborhoods where crime is high, children struggle with a lot of issues, and it provides all kinds of preventative kind of programming, engaging youth in positive activities, connecting them with mentors, whereas CVI is a very, very targeted effort to focus just on a small population of individuals who are the most likely people to shoot someone or be shot. The City of Orlando has now piloted that initiative starting last November and currently has enrolled 38 people. And the people who work with them, they're called Neighborhood Change Associates, provide intensive wraparound support to those 38 individuals. They meet with them at least 3 times a day. They develop life maps with them. And then there are also contracted mental health providers, housing providers, job providers that work strictly with those 38 people to pivot them away from that life of crime. The whole initiative is being evaluated by the University of California at Berkeley. So we had a presentation from them about it. And so the recommendation was to make a more robust recommendation in this space. So to partner with municipalities within Orange County, so not just City of Orlando, but all of Orange County, to partner with municipalities to implement evidence-based community violence intervention models in targeted county neighborhoods experiencing high incidences of gun violence, ensure that the CVI model identifies the most lethal individuals at the center of gun violence and provides them with long-term wraparound mentoring and supportive relationships, and wraparound services, including housing, employment, mental health counseling, and legal assistance until the individuals have fully pivoted away from a life of violence and are firmly set in a productive, positive, crime-free lifestyle. So that was basically the recommendation, to look at this model and to implement it and to make sure that sufficient funding is provided to implement it effectively. The next recommendation was to look at implementing models that identify small, defined geographic areas and invest in cradle-to-career programs. So this was in our original recommendations as well, and where we had a presentation from somebody who really wants this to be expanded into some county neighborhoods. So the committee agreed with that and decided to bolster our recommendation in that space. So those were the changes that we recommended to make to our second recommendation regarding access to youth and parenting mental health and behavioral health programs. So then we talked about recommendation number 5, create and implement a blueprint for local gun safety. We were fortunate to have input from county legal. We were worried, as the mayor said, we were worried about making recommendations that would put the county in a difficult legal situation in respect to the new state laws. So we tried our best to define the changes to our recommendations so that they comply with the new state laws. But I do recommend, as Mayor said, to have a thorough review by the county attorneys to make sure that this language is correct. And although I don't have permission from my committee, I would say if some edits need to be made to this to make absolutely sure that the terminology we use is legal here, please go ahead and make those changes. So first, we recommended utilizing the county's public information officer to disseminate information outlining the ways that the new legislation, commonly referred to as permitless carry or constitutional carry, will affect our community, the public's access to guns, and the expected increase in gun violence. So get the word out to the community so people are educated about this. Maintain a comprehensive review of state and federal laws governing sale, purchase, ownership, and carry of guns. Determine the extent of state and federal preemptions so as to identify what is within the jurisdiction of local governments that can improve safety and education related to gun violence, and to implement policy, ordinance, and code changes wherever they are legally feasible. So we gave an example, mandate that all locations selling guns, including gun show expos, have overnight security guards, off-duty officers to prevent break-ins and thefts. So there's still things that the county can do that are within legal limits established by the state, and we are encouraging the county to find out what those things are and do them. Create and implement a blueprint for local municipal involvement in increasing gun safety education and collaborating with local and statewide gun safety advocates to organize advocacy for evidence-based gun safety legislation at the state and federal level. And create an intersectional coalition to advise the Orange County Mayor and Commission, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and the State Attorney for the 9th Judicial Circuit, State of Florida, and provide ongoing partnership in the following gun safety goals. Identify a nonpartisan partner organization who can lead these efforts, and you'll note that we suggested potentially the League of Women Voters. So a nonpartisan partner organization, because the county can't really do it. It cannot be county staff by state law. Include representation from gun violence prevention organizations like Giffords Law Center, March for Our Lives, Prevent Gun Violence Florida, healthcare and trauma response organizations, et cetera, and then expand gun safety education across all ages and spaces in Orange County. Okay, so that was that recommendation, and now, one more. And expand education around common sense gun safety legislation, legislative changes that are proven to reduce gun violence. And we have a whole long list of them, from repealing Stand Your Ground, preventing access of children to guns, recording of lost and stolen firearms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we want the community to be educated about all the things that could be put in place to prevent gun violence as it relates to access to guns. Okay, and the last recommendation that we recommended amendments to was about the county communicating to the general public about all of the wonderful programs that the county supports throughout Orange County. And we had a presentation from a new public information officer that was hired by the county for this purpose. So it was really wonderful to see the county building its capacity in this space. Propose long-term actions, develop and disseminate a robust social media communications campaign aimed at strengthening anti-violence norms, especially among youth in the target zip codes. We really want the county to focus on communicating to youth about all of these programs by using social media, print-based media, web content, broadcast media, telephone, face-to-face interaction with individuals, and large group forums. disseminate more information to the community, the school district, and stakeholders regarding Orange County funded programs and services, including working with local media and developing an information clearinghouse to include but not limited to event calendars, activity resources, and everything that can be shared. And we really want the county to look at utilizing different modalities to particularly target getting information to youth and families, including pushing out information on social media channels that youth are more frequently using. It could be shared with other platforms by agencies, nonprofits, so getting partner organizations to also push out the information, and having youth assist in developing the social media campaigns that will allow them to have a voice and empower them to make change in their community. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're now going to hear from the Intervention Subcommittee, and representing them is Tracy Salem.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I just want to start by thanking Mayor Demings and our co-chairs, Dr. Doggett and Pastor Coffin, for your support throughout the entire process. Thank you so much. Our intervention subcommittee is made up of a great team. I'm just going to say some of the members are here today. Dr. Candace Jones is not present. We have Charles Brown, Chloe Johnson Brunson, Pastor Sabrina Jones, Catherine Jones, Subhash Patel, and Miles Moraine Jr. We had a really great team. Our team was able to speak openly, honestly, and really look at all of the current recommendations. They drafted 7 recommendations 2 years ago, and we were able to look at those 7 recommendations and really look at what is working, where are the gaps in services, and where are some changes that we need to make. So during this process, we reviewed the foundation, and we wanted to include looking at what the original focus is, which is to promote interagency cooperation and coordination among service providers in Orange County to assist with reducing gun violence and violent crimes pertaining to youth. And we also looked at the goal that was originally drafted, which is to identify program models that will redirect the unlawful activities of youthful offenders that present a significant risk to our community. We decided not to alter either of those two because we felt like that was truly the foundation of our intervention subcommittee. So then we looked at, what does intervention mean? And it's really to engage during the process, right? And to look at preventing harm. And so because of that, we decided our focus and our goals still basically aligned. We wanted to look at making sure that our subcommittee took a holistic approach. We wanted to make sure we incorporated both our stakeholders, our community, and our families that we were interacting with. And we really took a heavy concentration this time on mental health services and what mental health services probably needed to be incorporated or maybe were not identified or missing. So we held 4 different meetings, but we also participated in those 2 community meetings that were created. And we heard from 8 different presentations. The reason we did that is we wanted to see if there was a gap and what was currently working and maybe what isn't working. So we heard from Orange County Public Schools. We heard from Let Your Voice Be Heard. We heard from Bridges International. We heard from our Credible Messengers. We heard from Trauma Recovery Network. We heard from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. We heard from K-Ready and from 8 Waves Corporation. So our subcommittee then went back and reviewed all 7 recommendations, and we really made minimal changes. Many of our recommendations are either currently satisfied or they're in the process of being completed. And so what we wanted to do is see if there were any areas that we needed drastic change because the process that is currently being utilized, we were seeing enough change with. So recommendation number 1, which is to develop a detailed plan that addresses generational neglect and poverty, was one that we looked at. Recommendation number 4, which is define, develop, and fund a credible messengers program. Recommendation number 5, coordinate with mental health providers to increase the number of providers in the area. And recommendation number 7, create a realistic channel for communication with the community and youth. Those were the 4 recommendations we looked at adjusting. So recommendation number 1, in that area, we wanted to look at moving it from an original 10-year vision to a 3-year vision. And the reason we did that is we realized in social services, if we set a 10-year footprint or blueprint, it might be outdated by the time we get past year 3 and 4. And so we thought we would modify that and bring it back to 3 years, which would give us a chance every year to look at it and see if there's any changes needed. But if we did a 10-year vision, we felt like it was too far away and we would have lost focus much past year 3. In that recommendation, we also looked at enhancing the family support system to include prenatal care, child care, and early childhood education. So what we're learning as an intervention is, and what you'll see, a lot of intervention and prevention kind of align. So a lot of our changes also were reflected in what prevention was just speaking about, Ms. Lisa, early. So you'll see that what we want to do in intervention is also focus a little bit on prevention, which is that prenatal and childhood care, because we think that will help us when we're intervening with any of our youth. So recommendation number 4, this is to define, develop, and fund a credible messengers program. So our credible messengers program, we've already hired our credible messenger consultant. We are currently in the process of onboarding, contracting, negotiating with 4 credible messengers. And these are trained in skilled credible messengers who have already been certified here in Orange County. So our credible messenger consultant has been in the process this last year of really developing our credible messenger model in order to make sure that they keep the fidelity of the original national model, but make it our own here in Orange County, right? The culture of Orange County is going to look way different than any other city. So we've used this year to make sure we get it right. We get it right the first time. And now we're in the process of onboarding our credible messengers. So we look at this program really as a prevention and intervention program. So we're trying to prevent kids from entering the system. But if they're in the system, and once they come out of the system, the goal is to intervene so they don't penetrate further into our system. So what we want to do is build off of our current credible messenger model, and we want to add a short-term action, which is to utilize a program that will respond during violent crisis to assist the individual and the community affected by providing ongoing support services to individuals impacted by violent crime. What we're looking at here is what we realized in these meetings, as well as our intervention subcommittee meetings, is our credible messenger model is great. They're out in the streets. They call it sneaks to the streets. They're working directly with these families. But if there is a crisis, we need somebody who is a credible messenger who could immediately respond to the crisis, but not just that family, because it then trickles out, right? And we want that person to have credibility, to be able to go into the community and work in crisis with not only the family who's involved in it, but maybe the victim. How about the faith-based area? How about the community that surrounds and supports this area? So we want to include that short-term action. Number 5, this is where we had a lot of heavy conversation on the mental health providers. Originally, what we wanted to do, a lot of the subcommittee said it was easier for our kids to access alcohol than mental health. And so we wanted to then look at how can we incorporate mental health services throughout the community, non-traditional hours. And so our recommendation here is to teach and educate families, youth, and young adults on life skills programs, but to include peace and conflict resolution skills. So our goal is to get this into our community centers, as well as work with some of our stakeholders and other agencies that are currently providing services so that they're providing them in the community that our families reside in, also during non-traditional hours so that all our families can seek a service. Recommendation number 7. So this is to create a realistic channel for communication. There were 2 areas we wanted to delete, and this is to utilize billboards for enhanced communication. The original subcommittee thought purchasing billboards would be a great idea. This subcommittee altered a little bit, and they did not agree with that because they felt like the purchase of a billboard would just be in that one area where we wouldn't have the same reach if we utilize social media in a different capacity. We also are requesting to delete work with the youth to create and implement a social media communication. Our credible messengers are working with the youth on creating that social, the way to communicate effectively. What we wanted to do is really focus, as prevention indicated, on working with our public information officer. We've recently onboarded a PIO, and our public information officer is working with our community, working with our media, working with our social media avenues and channels in order to make sure that we are reaching everybody, because our goal is to make sure that the entire community is aware of the services that we have and where we have them. So thank you very much for our time, and that concludes intervention.
Thank you so much. We're now going to hear from our 4th subcommittee. Nancy Ash will be presenting for Judge Dawson, representing the Enforcement Subcommittee.
Thank you, Pastor. And thank you for allowing me the privilege of speaking to you today. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our mayor, the Honorable Jerry L. Demings, for appointing me to a 2nd term on the Orange County Citizen Safety Task Force. Our purpose was to develop a plan to prevent and reduce gun violence in the community. I enjoyed serving the citizens of Orange County by participating in bi-monthly meetings on the Enforcement Subcommittee. Our members were primarily from the judicial, law enforcement, and corrections fields. What strategies did we develop? After interviewing countless citizens from throughout the county and soliciting input from approximately 2,500 citizens, we put together recommendations proposing an improved partnership between police and the communities that they serve. Okay. Our members were myself, I'm a university professor. Senior Judge Daniel Dawson was our chair. Barbara Bergen from Crime Line. Johnny Brinson, Sheriff John Mina, Captain Ashley Strange, Chief Mike McKinley, Deputy Jerome Miller, Chief Eric Smith, and Captain Tanisha Brownskill, and Ricky Lee. And we also had sitting in our meetings Ms. Carol Burkett and Chief Anthony Watts from Orange County Corrections. The Enforcement Committee also heard from experts in the field, including police chiefs, corrections experts, and our community ambassador, Ms. Rump. Our proposed recommendations were as follows. Those were our original recommendations. Whoops. Okay, proposed recommendation number 1, to establish and maintain a community ambassador that will be tasked with connecting community organizations, community leaders, and community members, as well as attend community events on behalf of the county, providing details on key resources, activities, and events to assist in initiatives that directly or indirectly impact crime in our community. Proposed short-term actions: establish contacts with law enforcement and community partners to maintain awareness of ongoing community events. 2, continue to foster relationships and provide assistance as needed to connect them with county resources. 3, attend community meetings to assist in informing on county programs and services. 4, maintain data relevant to meetings, follow up, and track outcomes where applicable. Proposed recommendation number 2, use county media platforms to partner and assist law enforcement agencies in publicizing and increasing awareness of their agencies' use of evidence-based practices and non-traditional approaches of community policing and engagement initiatives designed to further build public trust in communities historically distrustful of law enforcement and disproportionately impacted by gun and violent crimes. Proposed short-term action: community ambassador will maintain law enforcement contacts and assist with acquiring information to share on county media platforms. Proposed recommendation that we delete our original recommendation 3, which was implement public safety workshops with law enforcement agencies and community stakeholders through an independent third-party facilitator. Delete. Proposed recommendation number 4, assist Orange County Sheriff's Office Behavioral Response Unit and Orlando Police Department's community response teams, which provide a joint response to calls that involve people in mental health crises, and to increase awareness of their programs and services by using available county media platforms, while also providing statistical updates on program activities. Proposed short-term actions: 1, community ambassador will maintain law enforcement contacts and assist with acquiring information to share on county media platforms. 2, community ambassador will also maintain awareness of Orange County government mental health initiatives and assist in communicating these initiatives via different venues and platforms. Our objective is to increase citizen awareness and involvement between police and the Orange County community, thereby facilitating the reduction of violent crime. In closing, we felt that the citizen input really helped us in forming the recommendations and want to thank them. Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank all of the subcommittee representatives who presented today, and we'd like to thank all of those who participated on the subcommittees. And as I've mentioned before, that's where the work really takes place. That's where things get done, and we appreciate very much your contribution to that. We would like to open up the floor for comment from any comment you have about the process, about observations you have about the recommendations that were made. This is the time to do that, and we have a limited amount of time available to us, so we would ask that you would you can say as much as you want, just say it in a few words. Anyway, keep your comments concise, but we'd like to open up. But before we do that, I would like to just clarify a couple of things. It has already been mentioned that the legal office is going to have to look at one of the recommendations, and so what comes out may not be exactly what we have here, and we're letting you know ahead of time about that. The other thing is also in the prevention subcommittee, recommendation number 5 and section B. It talks about creating an intersectional coalition to advise the Orange County Mayor and Commission and so on. And so in spirit, that is going to be carried out as is. However, there is already an organization, and it's called the Orange County Public Safety Coordinating Council. And so the actual council already exists. And so it's simply a matter of referring this to them. We don't want to create new work for people to be done, a new committee for people to have to sit on. And so in spirit, it's going to be done as stated, but it won't be forming a new committee. It will be using a council that already exists. Those are just clarifications where there could be some variation from what's proposed here. And now we'd like to open up for comments, and you can simply push your mic button that you would like to speak, and we would be happy to hear what you have to say. Okay, Arnie.
Okay, I guess I'll break the ice. I want to thank everybody for getting together for this task force, and sad to see it come to a close today, but hearing all the different subcommittees speak in reference to the involvement with Chief Watts about this program, it's the speaker earlier about having a reentry program, that is something that we should expand on, which is a great program. I suggest that we also involve corporate America with this reentry program. When they come in, have corporate America probably open their doors to the human resources and maybe work with our corrections on the reentry program. So corporate America, we can't do it alone. I ask that as a suggestion that they come into this program. Also with the Credible Messenger program, I hear every subcommittee talk about it or speak about it, and I think it's a fantastic program. I think we should expand that. Coach Rubin, when I first met him, he struck a chord, and the way I look at it, these Credible Messengers are the individuals, are the true grassroots of the targeted areas and the affected individuals. I believe that eventually these Coach Rubin Credible Messengers can develop these individuals to them themselves become credible messengers, and eventually there's a lot to continue, and I hope and wish to see this program continue with all these other organizations. But those are my two suggestions, but I thank you for having me on this task force.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, Adam.
Thanks. I have a quick question for the Enforcement Subcommittee. I am wondering why Recommendation 3 was removed about a training for law enforcement.
I'm going to let somebody else address that because I personally was in favor of it and got outvoted. So,
Okay.
Good morning, Anthony Watts. I was the enforcement liaison for the county. There was a lot of robust conversation regarding recommendation number 3. There are agencies that we heard from agencies that had participated in a program similar to that. In addition to that, in order to effectuate a program like that, as a county entity, we could not demand that, nor could we force that on any particular law enforcement agency. As part of those conversations, we solicited feedback from the law enforcement entities that would be required to implement a program similar to that. And for various reasons, they did not feel it was a viable option for their organizations, and therefore the decision was made by the committee to remove it as a recommendation. Certainly there are law enforcement representatives here in the room today, and I don't, not to put you on the spot, Sheriff or Captain Brunskill, but I will defer to them for any comments that they would have on the matter.
Okay, Sheriff John Mina will respond to that.
Yeah, sure. So after looking at input from other agencies who had attended similar training, it was our recommendation not to move forward with that. And I will tell you, Orange County Sheriff's Office has over 1,800 deputies. We already do a number of trainings related to a variety of things. So it's just, those things are just difficult to implement for large agencies and smaller agencies. So we decided against it.
Thank you very much. And Miles Mulrain, you were waiting at some point there.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say, it's my second time go around on the task force. I'm very happy to be here. Very grateful to be on this. And I know that we all said in the beginning, we were going to be here again. And I think this is something that I just wanted to see, just to reiterate what other people said, grow. Like how we had suggestions for the reentry task force, how we had suggestions in the past to just expand on it. And I just wanted to offer up, for one of the programs I've seen implemented from Credible Messengers, give hats up to it, salute to that program. And I want to see more things like Credible Messengers funded. I know that Lisa early just spoke about the CVI program. I'm actually one of the people who are in favor of both of those approaches. I believe that when it comes to the city, I've been doing work here for the better past decade on the ground in the Credible Messenger role. And I know that there's no one approach that's going to actually solve all the issues. I want to see just programs that are actually utilizing people like ourselves that are on the ground more highlighted and more utilized, because when it comes to this community, it's going to take the entities that are in the government, but it's also going to take the community. One of the things that we haven't seen so much in some of the meetings are a lot of outside community involvement. Us at Let Your Voice Be Heard, we see a lot of it just day to day. I think it's sometimes a lack of access. So, when it comes down to the community, I want to also just say that, once again, I sit in one of the other task forces. I want to see something developed that's more focused on not only the people who are perpetrating the crimes, but also the victims of the crimes in the communities that are affected. I would love to see just more things like how we spoke in the past about, and Credible Messengers is adopting a survivor approach program. I just want to see more focus on that. A lot of people have been reaching out in the community saying that they don't feel that they get touched all the time because it's so much about the high target areas. But Orange County, as you know, is very big. We need to be expanding, and we need to be utilizing groups that are actually all over the place. So I just want to just reiterate that I hope that this continues. I hope that the funding goes out to more grassroots groups. I hope that more people on the ground get a chance to do their programs. I want to see the Credible Messengers program expanded. I want to see the CVI program kind of utilized in the county. And I want to see a program for the survivors, because at the end of the day, the communities need the most focus. And that's where I think we should put our full focus at too.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Lisa.
Hi. It is Linda, but I see it says Lisa on this.
Okay.
But Lisa is right here. I wanted to know, in the prosecution on recommendation number 5, is there a way to add lights to that? Because every town hall that we go to, the community asks for more lights in the community, and that goes along with the cameras.
Linda, hi, this is Carol. I believe in our first set of recommendations, under prevention, we had improving overall neighborhood conditions, which includes streetlights. So we can certainly make note of that in our minutes for today, but that is, and I'm just pulling my report reflective. I know we heard a resident at our last meeting that talked about the need for additional street lights. So yes, we do. We have that as under recommendation number 6, improve overall neighborhood conditions, and it does talk about increased street lighting in residential areas.
Thank you.
Other comments? And don't be shy to speak up. This is one of those things where it could be speak now or forever hold your peace. So, yes, Charles Brown.
Yes, this too is my second go round, and I just wanted to comment on a few things and encourage us primarily to not give up, but to keep focused because these are generational and systemic issues that we're talking about that's probably going to take some time to see some meaningful results in dealing with these community issues. And I just want to encourage everybody to, I have not seen hard work result in, I always seen hard work result in positive outcome. And so I believe that once we persevere and not give up and continue to keep focused, even if we're not meeting in a committee, just be mindful of the issues that are out there that we need to come up with suggestions on how we want to resolve them. And I just wanted to thank for the opportunity to be a part of this meeting. And the other thing I want to mention is that we've been in the community in the heart of Mercy Drive for over 40 years, and I've seen the community change over the years for the good or for the bad. But I think each time I've seen them bounce back and somehow through the decades, come back to where we need to be in a community as citizens and helping each other. So I just want to, my encouragement is the perseverance of not just being in this committee, but being involved in it outside the committee, and just keep persevering.
Thank you. And Sandra Fatmi Hall.
Thank you. Good morning. Once again, a pleasure to serve. I would like to make note that under the prevention subcommittee, and we talk about neighborhoods to be prioritized, I think there's one zip code that I work very heavily in that I think really should be made mention here, and that's 32808. Right? And it's an area that I think definitely we should focus on, and lots of work have been done there, and lots of work needs to be continued in that zip code, 32808. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Well, I think we're coming to the end of our discussion, and so I'll pause just one more minute if there's somebody else who wants to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, Adam.
Hi, just circling back to my first question. I don't agree with removing the recommendation number 3 about training for law enforcement officers. I appreciate that it can be difficult to do and costly to do as well, but I think it's probably pretty important just to maintain a good understanding in as many law enforcement kind of sectors or whatever, to keep that awareness of public safety going. It may be prominent in some and not in others, but I think the more we can push that, the better off we'll be. So I'd like to make a motion to override the law enforcement subcommittee's removal of that and keep that in the recommendations.
Okay, we would like to have the a member of that committee. Were you a member of the committee, Adam?
I was not.
You were not. Okay, and Mr. Anthony Watts has outlined, the rationale there that it's somewhat difficult for when you have all of these constitutional officers who are not actually under the direction of the county and who are elected in their own right. It's a little bit difficult to say, you need to do X, Y, or Z. It's purely advisory. And so the question would also be then, we have the Orange County Public Safety Coordinating Council, and it has on it all of the constitutional officers who function within Orange County. And so in a sense, we're covering that there. And that's just something to keep in mind. Was there anybody who would like to speak to that? Sheriff Mina.
Yeah, so I would just like also to add that the Orange County Sheriff's Office are already doing these workshops in conjunction with the Urban League and have been very, very successful. So we don't feel the need to implement another program. We attend hundreds of community meetings every single year.
Okay. A motion was made, but there's no second at this. Excuse me. The representative for Chief Eric Smith.
Yes, Captain Tanisha Bronskill. Orlando Police Department has participated in a program like that, and it was with, training for the officers as well as the community, and then everyone was brought together. While those programs do work, you also have to have the buy-in from the community. They have to attend. And I'll be brutally honest, there were times that we would go and try and almost get people there on our own to make sure that these meetings happen. So it's not that we're opposed to doing them, we've done it. And we also have several community meetings that our chief himself put together where he goes to each community and allows the public the opportunity to ask him questions or suggest things that they want. So we're not saying that we're opposed to it, but we have done it. And it takes a lot to facilitate something like that.
Okay, thank you. Adam?
Thanks. Sounds like the law enforcement is in support of this, so it is confusing that why it's not in the recommendations. You're doing the trainings already, so keep it in there. I don't think it needs to be removed from our overall plan and recommendations for a safer community.
Pastor Coffin.
Yes.
I'm not sure what the appropriate decorum would be. I would say this, I appreciate Adam's perspective. I think the work of the subcommittee should be respected, as they were the ones that were diligently involved in the conversations, had opportunities as a subcommittee to vet the recommendations, and took a vote and decided on whether on the recommendations they desired to move forward and those that they felt needed to be removed. And I just think that the work of the subcommittee, who were diligently involved and closest to the conversations, should be respected. However, I defer to county staff on what the appropriate protocol is when there's recommendations from the subcommittee that were vetted and voted on, and now a recommendation is being made at the larger meeting with a member not serving on that committee with respect to their recommendations.
At this point, we have no second, and if there's no second, the motion dies. And okay, the motion has died. Okay, I want to thank all of you for your input, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Doggett now, and he will lead out in the actual voting about this.
All right, we're crossing the finish line now. We do appreciate all of the reports that have been made and the discussion that's been held. We're ready now at this particular time to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the task force recommendations that have been presented by our subcommittees. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
It's moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there? Well, we've had our discussion. So, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. It is unanimously carried. We thank you so much. I think we're at the end, Pastor Coffin. I just want to say before handing the microphone back to you that since this task force began its job, thousands of people across the nation have died from gunfire. This work is, in fact, extremely important. And I hope that we will not only wait for another opportunity like this task force to bring our brains and our energy to the issue, but in fact, in the communities where we live, in the families where we are, the churches we attend, let's do the best we can to try to address this issue. Also, I want to make mention of the fact that the staff has been wonderful in facilitating what's happened with this task force. I want to thank Carol Burkett and the rest of the staff for the awesome work that you do. Orange County Television also, I appreciate the way they set up, the way they manage and handle things. That means a lot. It says a lot about our county. And then, of course, our mayor, Jerry Demings, I call him the coolest mayor in America. I know several of them, and none of them can touch him when it comes to being cool and intelligent and caring. So I want to say thank you to him. I want to let you know that we have experienced a great death in our community with Reverend Randolph Bracey Jr. Passing away, an advocate for justice. Let's pray for his family. And let's step in the gap and make sure that with his loss, we don't lose the energy for the things that really matter most.
And I'd like to say ditto to everything he said, and that's it from me. We thank you very much for your service, and this meeting is adjourned.